One early spring morning a ticket comes entitled "Laptop screen turns off in the third floor meeting room." This sounds too good to be true, of course, so we call the user and ask for some more details. Apparently this issue comes up frequently, nearly every time they are in that specific meeting room, never at their desk. To see if we can figure out the issue, we schedule a time when we can meet in this room and ask the user to use their laptop as they normally would during a meeting. Of course the laptop screen stays on, and we conclude that this is a user issue and not equipment issue, probably just the user pressing the sleep button on the keyboard. The user did not like this, but went their way. Few weeks later, a new ticket comes in, laptop screen turned off again. We told the user to be careful around the F keys, and closed the ticket. Some days later the ticket is reopened and the user informs us they did not touch the keyboard when the screen turned off. A new laptop is issued just in case, but the issue kept coming back. At this point we were all convinced that the user kept pressing the sleep button and decided not to pursue this anymore. About a month later a colleague was helping this user with an unrelated issue, when the laptop screen turned off. This time the user was a few feet away from the laptop. My colleague lifted their hands up, probably by surprise, and the screen came back on. Then put their hand back on the keyboard and it turned off again. This laptop did not use a hinge mechanism to detect if the lid was closed, but instead magnets. So when the magnets in their watch came close enough to the one on the laptop, the screen turned itself off. This only happened in the third floor meeting room for the user, because this is where they used their laptop outside a docking, and when we initially went to investigate the user was standing, creating a gap large enough between their wrist and the laptop to not have an effect on the magnets. Sometimes the user might just not be the issue. So I used to work at a large bank in the UK as a junior support analyst. In the early days I surprised my colleagues by picking up Shell and SQL scripting really quick, and I became the go-to for creating bespoke reporting for issues that needed monitoring, usually PDFs with a list of discrepancies, that would go to executives to take into meetings. I handed in my notice for a better role elsewhere, so needed to hand over this work to someone in my team, my manager. We were a small team. The handover went well, and the first thing my manager did was to make the report look nicer, better fonts and company logos as the report was being distributed to a wider audience in the company. At the same time an adjacent team, that looked after all the expensive printers, were getting looked into by the IT security team for distributing adult material at work. Something my manager and I laughed about. It turns out, my manager, being lazy, just used the URL of the company logo instead of adding it into the script. The image was hosted by a conspiracy website in Berlin. I can only imagine this site was seeing a ping, image download every morning at 8:35, and an admin there did a reverse IP trace, only to discover it was owned by the bank that the logo was of. This German genius replaced the image with, keeping it SFW, a picture of a very beautiful woman with her legs at 10 and 2 while balancing on something large. It had been at the bottom of every report for approximately 5 weeks. Thousands of emails. It was discovered by an exec while he was holding his freshly printed report. The image was on the back page facing everyone else in the meeting, full of other execs. Pretty sure nothing came of it, and everyone involved thought it was hilarious, but he got very lucky. I've been doing first-level tech support for a few years now. A few months ago I accepted a position in another state for a law firm. Most of the time, people are polite, if rushed due to the nature of the business. This time, however, I was rewarded handsomely for my knowledge. A woman called because our email filtering software caught an email with a time-sensitive code. So I had her get another code, and as soon as it landed in the filter, I released it. She was very happy since she was, in her words, terrified of tech. She asked how she could thank me, and I said she could buy me a drink at the Christmas party. 2 days later, a bottle of Four Roses small batch bourbon gets delivered to me. 3 years at my previous tech job, I got contempt and backtalk. Here after 6 months, I get a bottle of the good stuff. Keep your eye open for opportunities outside your current organization. You never know how you might benefit from a change in scenery. My first IT job was on a help desk for a national media monitoring company. It was actually interesting work. We were brewing our own OCR software when OCR was in its infancy. This call wasn't about that, though. A user from the Canberra office called to ask us to help her with a mouse problem they were having. What sort of mouse problem? I ask. Well, she responds, there are mice in the office, the boss asked me to call IT. Okay. Why did she ask you to call us? Don't know, I told her we had a mouse problem, she said call IT. Maybe tell her it's actual mice, rodents, not an IT thing. Sure. Sorry to bother you. Got a call from her boss a while later, apologizing, she'd heard mouse problem, thought it was about hardware. We laughed, I had a good story. Not sure who sorted the mouse problem,